My name is Kelly, and I am a Senior Content Manager here at BrightTalk. And joining me today is Bob Cruz, CEO and co-founder of Checkpoint Technologies. Bob, thanks so much for joining us today. I'm really looking forward to the conversation.
Thank you, Kelly. I'm very excited to be with you today. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. So before we get started, just a couple quick housekeeping items for those that are live on the line. So if you want to get involved in the webinar today, this is a really great opportunity to get all of your questions answered by Bob, who is an expert founder, CEO in the app security space. So feel free to send your questions through the questions box on your screen. You can also tweet at me at BrightTalk. You just use the hashtag FoundersSpotlight. And then we also have links to a couple other webinars in our Founder Spotlight series in the attachment section if you want to check those out as well. And then lastly, don't forget to send your feedback and ratings through at the end of the webinar. We'd love to just get your thoughts on how we did. So thanks again for joining and participating today. And we'll go ahead and jump right in. So again, my name is Kelly, and I'm a Senior Content Manager at BrightTalk. I've been here for about 2.5 years now, and I have a Bachelor in Communications and a minor in Marketing. And really what I do at BrightTalk is I get to work with experts such as Bob and other folks in the industry to help create and curate content for our cloud and IT infrastructure communities. I also helped to start a women in tech community on BrightTalk a couple years ago, and really work a lot with experts across those industries, focusing on things like cloud, data centers, DevOps, digital transformation. So that's a little bit about me. Again, feel free to tweet at me if you'd like to get involved in the webinar today or in our Founder Spotlight series. So Bob, I'll go ahead and kick it over to you. If you want to give a brief background on yourself, that would be great.
Absolutely, Kelly. So again, as Kelly mentioned, my name is Bob Cruz. I am the CEO and co-founder of Checkpoint Technologies. We are headquartered in Tarpon Springs, which is really close to Tampa in Florida. And we incorporated in January of 2003 as an S-Corp. And our primary focus is in quality assurance and software testing, especially in the areas of functional, performance, and application security. And my background started off, I got a bachelor degree in New Hampshire in computer information systems back in the late 80s, early 90s, and started off as an IBM DB2. I was a DBA COBOL developer for a number of years. So I've been in IT for 29 plus years. And I'd be willing to bet that a lot of the participants have been in IT for a number of years, as I have. And we've seen some incredible evolutions in the IT landscape. It's just absolutely amazing. I think back to when I first started, it was primarily, CICS programming, block screen with the black background and the green fields and whatnot, and we've really just have moved forward so much. I used to say that I could envision the day would come where we would look at our screen just like Genie in that old show for I Dream of Genie, and I know I'm dating myself, but we'd be able to blink at it, and sure enough, we're at that point today. But our focus, again, is quality assurance and software testing. I'm also president of the Tampa Bay Quality Assurance Association. I'm very proud to be a community chairperson on the Vivint Board of Directors, which is the Micro Focus Independent Global User Group. Fantastic organization, which I'll chat about a little bit later. I'm also a corporate mentor for the University of South Florida Muma College of Business. And I'm a regular speaker for topics in quality assurance, software testing, team development, and risk analysis. So again, started Checkpoint Technologies a number of years. And that's one of the things I really wanted to share with everybody, Kelly, is just one of the things that when we started Checkpoint Technologies, I really had a goal, a vision of being able to start a company with a focus in quality assurance and software testing, and to do so while being 100% self-financed, which, as you can imagine, if any of you in the audience are looking to start a business, that presents some challenges in and of itself. So the first 3 years with Checkpoint Technologies, in addition to being the CEO, I was also 100% billable. So I would provide consulting and education to a number of organizations. Obviously, as the organization grew, my billable utilization had to decrease because as the CEO, I had to focus on other areas. I also became a certified instructor because as a practitioner, I would teach in a number of different areas, especially in test automation, and I would teach an average of 15 courses per year. And then I would also be a frequent presenter whenever I had the chance. So in webinars, lunch and learns, user groups, and conferences as a subject matter expert in not only test automation, but test management. Risk analysis is a topic I'm very passionate about, and a number of other different areas. I also would have a goal, Kelly, of sending out 150 marketing emails per week. So some of you may remember Mercury Interactive and their initial, or one of their initial test automation solutions called WinRunner. And every night in our first couple of years in founding Checkpoint Technologies, I would go home and send out these emails with the subject line of WinRunner and life. And I would send this out to different organizations where I provided consulting or education on WinRunner. And sure enough, it would always result in somebody emailing me back and saying, hey, Bob, we're having some real challenges with test automation. We've gone astray. Can you help us out and provide some more education, some advanced education, or some services to give us a bit of a quick start? And then, as you can imagine, SEO was a very early high priority. So SEO, search engine optimization. For any of you, again, starting a new organization, search engine optimization and your presence on the internet is absolutely critical. So a lot of these, being a certified instructor, frequent presenter, sending out these marketing emails, these were all focused on branding, name recognition, lead generation and demand generation, and building the business. And all of this was while remaining 100% billable. And then in regard to the different opportunities, we were very focused on staff augmentation opportunities. They were long-term. We pride ourselves today on the quality of our engineers. And in starting Checkpoint Technologies, my business partner and I truly wanted to make the decision that, you know, we didn't want to lay employees off. We had a goal. We didn't want to be a body shop. We didn't want to be the type of technical firm that would simply place a body in an organization to provide contract services for 2 or 3 months and then have to let them go. So when our employees were on the bench, we would have a goal of professional development, having them improve their skills. And with staff augmentation, that is primarily what Checkpoint Technologies is about. So in our revenue, it's primarily 65 to 70% revenue from services, with the rest being a partner and a reseller. And then we continued to grow the company as the demand and revenue permitted. And that's always a big challenge. You don't want to miss opportunities by not having the staff, but then again, you don't want to have the staff on board and not have them be utilized. And I'm very proud to say that our first line of credit was obtained in 2010 because we came up with an aggressive growth effort at that time, an initiative. But for our first 7 years, we were 100% self-financed.
That's pretty impressive. That's a really great background. And I think, you know, something I wanted to ask there is in terms of what the inspiration was for you to start a company that that focuses primarily on quality and software testing. Had you identified a gap in the market, or just realizing that a lot of people in the industry needed more education on it? What was it that kind of spurred that initially?
Great question. You know, what really spurred it was that, as I mentioned, I had started off as a developer in DBA, and in designing and developing an application, there was a process and there was a strategy. And I found that as it got to the point of being delivered into production, quality was not being given its due. And the other big thing was that strategy, when it came to quality and verification and validation, was not being given its due. I use an analogy a lot of time in the game of chess. So if I were to ask everybody who's listening, if I were to ask all of you, how many of you know how to play chess? So I'm hoping that many of you are raising your hand. Chess is a great game. So you've got your hand raised. And now I ask, truly, how many of you simply know how to move the pieces? And I'd be willing to bet that a lot of you are shaking your head in the sense that that's truly what you know how to do in the game of chess. You know how to move the pieces. Well, when it comes to quality assurance and software testing, we want our testers to know more than simply how to move the pieces. So when I saw that gap where there was a lack of strategy in quality and quality assurance, I thought, I can make a difference in this area. And that was one of the primary drivers of Checkpoint Technologies being founded.
That's great. Thank you for sharing that.
Absolutely. And when we started Checkpoint Technologies, from day one, we very quickly became a partner with Mercury Interactive. So for those of you in the audience, you may recall Mercury Interactive developed a lot of the application delivery management solutions that Micro Focus now has. So we are also a partner with Micro Focus. And we knew early on that a great vendor partnership was essential, because even though we were primarily services and our services were not always focused on the solutions, I mean, sometimes we provide manual testers, team leads, business analysts, etc. But we knew that having a great vendor partnership was critical. So we identified, and we continue to identify, partners that we feel have the most innovative solutions offered, and they keep that innovation by investing R&D, time, effort, and money. And what is also very important is when we identify an organization whom we would like to partner with, it's important that they embrace and endorse a strong user group community. I had mentioned early on that I'm very proud to be a director with Vivid, which is Micro Focus's independent user group committee. Absolutely fantastic organization, because a company like Checkpoint Technologies, we want to be able to get out and see the passion and be part of the passion in our particular area of expertise. And that is something that Vivid, helps promote. Also, a partnership program offering a win-win-win. So make sure that any organization you're going to partner with understands that, yes, obviously they need to win. I guarantee you they understand that. But you, as the vendor partner, need to win. But then also what is most critical is that your mutual customer has to win. So that is something you've got to make sure that they understand. It's not, when we look at those organizations whom we're going to partner with and we're going to resell their solutions or services, we want to make sure that their focus is not simply on closing or winning one particular deal. It's more about developing long-term customers. So there have actually been opportunities, Kelly, where we have lost the opportunity, but in doing so, we may have lost it because we were so consultative and we shared with the customer, you know, this may not be the right move for you at this point in time. And in doing that, we ended up winning a customer for life, who in the subsequent years, they continued to do more and more business with us. Also with a vendor, you want to make sure that they understand your business. It is especially essential and beneficial if the vendor partner has a dedicated channel rep. That's the common term for that. So with Micro Focus, for example, we have a partner business manager who truly makes an effort to understand the goals and objectives of Checkpoint Technologies. And they help us fill our gaps. They help support us. So that is absolutely critical. The other thing that's important is you want a vendor partner that promotes your sales team and their sales team actually being a team and partnering. You don't want them competing. That has been, it's been my experience that that's been some of the most disastrous partnerships, where you end up having vendor partners where you end up having to compete with their own sales team, and you end up spending a lot more time resolving conflicts than you would like. And face it, when you are starting a business, when you're the CEO of business, you want to minimize distractions like that. And then the other thing we look for is a strong marketing strategy by the vendor. So with their marketing strategy, we don't want them, we're not looking for them to simply promote their solutions. We're looking for them to promote their partners. So that is absolutely critical. And then not only promote their partners, but team up with their partners on different marketing efforts. So a lot of times with some of our different vendors, we will team up and co-present on a webinar, or perhaps even attend a conference together, or present at a user group meeting. And those are very, very effective strategies.
So it sounds like being a VAR, a value-added reseller, has been a big part of your company's success. So going off of that, I'm wondering if there's any specific advice or tips that you might give someone on the line who's thinking of starting a company, or becoming a value-added reseller as part of their strategy.
Absolutely. Great question, Kelly. So, one of the things that I would mention is that when you're looking to become a VAR, a value-added reseller with an organization, you obviously want to develop expertise in their solutions, but you also want to develop expertise above and beyond their solution. So, for example, excuse me, and the thing you'll find, Kelly, is I'm really big into analogies. But one of the things I share with people, it's, our engineers, if I can use the analogy of a carpenter or an architect, our engineers are excellent and have significant expertise in how to use specific tools. But you can give the worst carpenter in the world the greatest hammer, and they are still a really bad carpenter. You've got to know how to build the house. So, in our area of expertise, quality assurance and software testing, we want to make sure our engineers have expertise in specific solutions, but we want to make sure above and beyond that, they understand the strategy of software testing, whether it's manual testing, test planning, requirements writing, traceability, DevOps, continuous integration, continuous delivery, and so on. So it's important to go above and beyond the tool expertise. You've got to understand and embrace the entire strategy. And then also to go back, to the slide here, just make sure you follow these different things, that you make sure that it's a win-win-win all around for the organization you're partnering with, for your own organization, and most importantly, for your mutual customer.
Perfect. Thank you for sharing that.
Absolutely. So, some application security trends. I'm always excited to talk about application security as well as a number of other areas such as artificial intelligence and machine learning. But when it comes to application security trends and insights, one of the things I'm sure a lot of people have heard is that 84% of all successful breaches exploit vulnerabilities at the application layer. So think about it. Just any of you in the audience, bring up security to somebody next time you're at a conference. Just start talking to them about security. And do not precede that word with application. So just bring up security. And I guarantee you 90% of the time, they will assume you are talking about network security. So what has happened is that the majority of security spending on blocking attacks is at the network level, and it has a perimeter focus looking for malware and viruses. And that's all important. That is all very, very important. I don't want to say you should not be doing that. But what is very important is that more organizations have got to start spending more time, effort, and money in protecting and ensuring security at the application level. Because too many organizations have a reactive approach when it comes to application security, and that becomes inefficient and very expensive, and being reactive is just not the way to go. It's dangerous. It's a risk. Look at the trends happening today. The number of applications are growing at an incredible rate. I mean, when we look at the smart devices, the applications that are available on the stores, when you throw in the Internet of Things and everything that's happening in that area, and then on top of that, the complexity of applications and threats are increasing. So what is very, very important is you've got to ensure to build application security into the software development lifecycle. So ensure secure development, ensure that you've got a strategy for application security testing, and then once it's in production, make sure that you've got a process and an initiative in place for continuous monitoring and protection. So these are just some trends and insights I wanted to share with everybody in this particular area.
That's great. And we did get a couple questions in from the audience that I think would be good to address now. So one viewer is asking, are there any particular types of testing or testing trends that you're seeing more focus on lately?
Great question. So the types of testing and the testing trends that I'm seeing is obviously so much is going into the cloud these days. So that is changing significantly. Where as I mentioned, just with security testing, the whole perimeter, your applications are probably now spread out all over the place. You may have them internally in your network. You may have an internal cloud, or there could be an external cloud. So cloud testing is a big trend that I'm seeing. The other thing, which there's a lot of excitement about, is artificial intelligence. And that is, I do not claim to be an expert on artificial intelligence. That's an area that I'm just passionate about. I read as much as I can. But when you look at artificial intelligence and what we've accomplished today, so one of the things I would throw out to the audience is, when you have a chance, go on Google or YouTube and search for AlphaGo Move 37. So you'll be able to find actually videos where AlphaGo is where Lee Sedol, an expert Go champion, is playing a computer, and in a particular move, he becomes stunned, if you will, because this artificial intelligence form has made this move that he and the moderators all believe is a mistake. So when it comes to artificial intelligence and more organizations wanting to use that for testing, my thoughts is, from a technical perspective, I have no doubt whatsoever that we will be at the point where artificial intelligence will be testing and validating more and more of our applications very, very quickly. What I believe is the key question, though, is from a trust and legal perspective, how are we going to deal with that in IT? Because picture, if you will, Kelly, somebody walking in the door with Albert Einstein, turning to you and saying, "Hey, Kelly, I want you to test Albert Einstein to verify that he knows a lot about math." Now, I don't know about you, Kelly. I don't have that level of expertise in math. So it gets to the point where yeah, exactly. So it gets to the point where artificial intelligence is exceeding, or is going to exceed, our level of expertise, and/or develop its own definition for quality. So how will we feel about the thought of machines testing machines? But I didn't mean to go off on that tangent, but obviously when it comes to artificial intelligence, that's a subject that I love. And then other trends that I'm seeing is Internet of Things. Just the amount of data and data analytics, the fact that testing, when you're talking about the Internet of Things, has to go into the wild, if you will. I use the simple example of a Fitbit. And I just would think to myself, okay, perhaps one test condition we might have for a Fitbit is we want to have an athlete running a 5-minute mile in 30-degree temperatures, and then we're checking for all of these other conditions. So we've got to do that out in the real world. But then the other thing that comes into play are test subjects, because how are we going to find somebody that can actually do that? So the Internet of Things is a big area that I see more and more organizations wondering, how are we going to test this?
That's interesting.
So,
I think that's a good analogy as well to really kind of hit it home.
Yeah, it's we all live in some exciting times, that's for sure.
Yeah, that's true. And in going off of that, are there any specific types of apps or technologies that you've seen most organizations are having challenges testing? Are there any common themes there that the audience should be aware of?
So I mentioned the Internet of Things. The other type of technology which I feel as though most organizations do not have a grasp on, I would say it would have to be mobile testing. The number of devices, the number of operating systems, and then you've got to take demographics into account. And that's probably one of the biggest mistakes. Most organizations don't take demographics into account. So they truly don't understand how their application is truly being utilized out in the real world. And then they overwhelm themselves by performing verification and validation on too many devices in too many scenarios. But I think a lot of great solutions are coming out to help with mobile testing. Micro Focus has some great solutions. Kobiton, fantastic. We're a partner with them as well. So, I would have to say mobile testing is one of the areas, and then not only in the area of functional testing for mobile, but also obviously both functional and application security testing.
Okay, great. And we did get another question in from the audience that I think is a good segue to that. This viewer is asking, what are some common mistakes made when it comes to security testing? Is it kind of the demographics piece again, or something more focused specifically on security?
No, I would have to say that truly I would say that there are three core principles that need to be followed when it comes to application security testing. So the first one is you want to prevent. So, and to do that, to prevent hacks and vulnerabilities and breaches, we've got to stop treating security as an afterthought. So in that first core principle of prevent, it's important that organizations understand their risk posture, that they ensure security is built in. And one of the ways to do that is to train your developers, get them thinking like hackers, and get them to assess the cyber capabilities, identify the business critical assets, and focus on protecting those. So prioritize those. So core principle number one is prevent. Second, detect and respond. So you want to make sure that you're monitoring the security operations 24/7, 365 days a year. And then the third core principle is recover. You've got to be able to ensure the business continuity and availability of your IT environment, the critical systems, and the applications, whether it's in a natural disaster, a cyber attack, or a system failure. So follow those three core principles, and if an organization does that, that would just make a huge difference.
Perfect. Thank you. I think those are three nice takeaways for the audience.
Any other questions, Kelly?
It looks like in terms of this slide, I think that about wraps it up. So we can go ahead and jump into the rest of the Q&A portion. So just a friendly reminder to those that are live on the line, this is a great time to send your questions through for Bob or myself if there's anything you want us to answer for you today. So again, send those through the questions box, and we'll be sure to get those answered before we wrap up. So we do have one here, Bob, and this viewer is asking, you had mentioned you've had great success with hiring really high-quality engineers. Do you have any specific advice on how to do so?
I do, actually. So I'm glad that question was asked. And just a couple of weeks ago, I was actually a keynote at a conference in Arlington, STPCon, for those of you that are looking for some great conferences to go. And my keynote was specifically on using games, puzzles, and brain teasers during the vetting process when you're looking to hire employees, specifically engineers, as well as to continue to improve their skills. So at Checkpoint Technologies, there have been a number of times that we've come up with different games or brain teasers to help us determine if a job candidate has the aptitude for a particular area of technology. And this actually came about a few years ago, or this is one of the driving instigators, if you will. Our Director of Professional Services and I were finding that a lot of engineers, as strong as they were with test automation, they had a hard time with the thought of designing and developing test automation frameworks. So one day I was thinking, and I started thinking about the fact that that requires abstract reasoning. And I started thinking about some of the different puzzles I had to take many years ago. So about 33 years ago, I actually applied to be an air traffic controller, and they gave me 200 different brain teasers, all focused on abstract reasoning. And so that's something, and we found when we started doing that, we started having immediate success in finding engineers who had the aptitude to learn how to design and develop automation frameworks. So that's just one of the things that we do. And then, we try to do that as part of team building on occasion. It can be a morale booster. So I'm just a big fan of using games, puzzles, and brain teasers for the hiring process, as well as to continue to improve your engineers. Yeah, thanks for that question.
Yeah, that's great. Perfect. And then we did get a couple more in from the audience. So this question says, how often have you revised your business model or strategy over the years? Has that mostly stayed static, or is it something you've needed to evolve over time?
It has evolved a bit over time, but we've done our best, and I feel we've been successful at staying true to our vision. Our goal has always been to assist organizations to deliver higher quality software to production faster. So that's our mission, that's our goal, and we've stayed true to that. Now, obviously, as different technologies have evolved, we've had to make the decision as to whether or not to include that technology in our toolbox, if you will. But for the most part, we've stayed very true. But I'm a firm believer when you make a business plan, it needs to be flexible enough so that when opportunity comes knocking at the door, you can make a change and take advantage of that and welcome opportunity on in.
Absolutely. Perfect. And then we have one other here from the audience. And so this question says, what has been your one biggest challenge as a founder and business owner that you're willing to share?
Oh, wow. So I'm going to categorize that in two different areas. So from a technical perspective, our biggest challenge, which I'm sure everybody can relate to, is the speed at which technology has changed. And as a business owner, you've got to quickly make the decision, are we going to include that technology as part of our expertise? If so, do we want to be ahead of the curve? Do we want to be in line with it? Or do we want to wait a little while to see how it shakes out? So that's always been a challenge. And then you have to figure out how much time, effort, and money are you going to invest to introduce that new technology to your team. So there's that. From a business perspective, trying to build a team that has as much passion for your industry as you, the founder, you, the owner, has, is always a challenge. But I am very proud to say at Checkpoint Technologies, we have a phenomenal team, not only of engineers, but our sales team is absolutely fantastic. Our operations team is excellent. But just, finding finding folks with the same passion that you have for your business and for your industry can always be a challenge.
Yeah, that's really interesting, and I don't think that's something that's been mentioned in other founders' spotlight interviews that I've done before. But I think that's a really important piece. Is I'm sure most CEOs and founders want to make sure that their team is passionate about what they're doing and not just coming in to punch a clock and then leave at the end of the day. So I'm glad you mentioned that, and I think that's a really good takeaway for the audience. And I think I mean, I'm guessing it's likely really tough to screen for that. So how have you been able to, kind of incorporate that value across the entirety of the company? Is it something that you guys, really actively or consciously focus on, or how have you gone about that?
We, excuse me, we have tried our best to reward our team when we do well. We try our best to acknowledge the fact that it's a team effort, and admit that our success is due to the team that we have on board and the fantastic customers that we have, as well as the partners. So we try to thank them as much as we can, but as often as we do, sometimes I feel like it's never enough.
Sure. Yeah, that's
and like you said too, Kelly, that's not something that you can easily vet for during an interview, because I mean, face it, when people go to an interview, typically they're doing their best to bring their A game to that interview, and sometimes it's a challenge to sift through the baloney, if you will.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Perfect. And we did get one other question in from the audience that we have time to answer. So this viewer is asking, what are your thoughts around user verification and security associated with it?
Oh, that is absolutely critical. That is something you've got to make sure of, that those accessing your application are authorized to do so. So that type of software, those types of processes are absolutely critical. And I want to emphasize something I mentioned before, that when I was talking about the imbalance, that there's not enough organizations focused on application security. I don't want anybody to think that I was taking away from any other aspects of security, such as user verification. That is absolutely very important.
All right, great. So it looks like that's all the questions we have for now, and we only have about 2 minutes left. So before we sign off, again, quick reminder to those that are live on the line, if you'd like to get involved in this series, you can check out the attachment section for links to other episodes. Feel free to email me directly if you are a founder and are interested in being interviewed. My email is kharris@brighttalk.com. And then, again, last item, please don't forget to send through your feedback and ratings so Bob and I can know how we did today. But otherwise, I think that is pretty much it. Bob, huge thanks again for joining and sharing all of your expertise and insights with our audience. I think that was a really valuable conversation.
My pleasure, Kelly, and thank you for the interaction and the great questions, and letting me rant for a little while. I hope everybody found it beneficial. And again, thank you, and thank you, Kelly.
Absolutely. And thanks, everyone, for joining us today. Have a great rest of your day. Bye-bye.